Okay, hello everyone. My name is Filip, and today I'm gonna talk to you about bridges and cross-chain interoperability. Two disclaimers. First one is that I am not the one that was supposed to give this talk. It was supposed to be my colleague Alex Miller's talk, but unfortunately he couldn't be with us here today. So I ended up jumping in. And the other disclaimer that I want to say here, that we are cross-chain maximalists, as it says here, despite of Vitalik's famous, now kind of famous, tweet about cross-chain versus multi-chain future. We still believe that since we are here and we have so many different cross-chain applications, I think that we actually have a cross-chain future, not necessarily only multi-chain future. So it seems that we have come a long way. I remember this scene in 2016 when people were talking about a single one chain to rule them all, and which blockchain should be the best and should be the winner of this layer 1 battle. But now, like 5-6 years later, we still have so many and so many more new layer 1 chains. So that's just to say that actually cross-chain cross-chain is probably the future. So we currently have 114 bridges, 42 bridges with tracked TVL, and more than 130 networks connected to these bridges. So yeah, we truly have come a long way. So one would say that with these numbers here, one would say that interoperability is actually solved, right? We're not so sure about that, because there are a lot of bridges, there are a lot of routes you can take from a layer 1 to different layer 1 or layer 2 or app chain, but some fundamental challenges are still not addressed. To be concrete, there are 4 challenges that are important for us to address here. The first challenge is actually, if you're a dev developer, there's so many different bridge technologies and so many different bridging options that for a single developer it's kind of hard to choose which options and which route to take. Because each bridge is actually using different security assumptions and models. So really a lot of research is required before deciding on integrating a specific bridge and a specific cross-chain approach. So in order for you to do that, there are 3 approaches that we identified that solve the challenge. Either you don't decide at all on which bridging technology you are going to use, or you let experts decide for instead of yourself, or you decide yourself. There are usually 3 main factors on deciding which bridge to use. That's cost, speed, and security, of course. For dev developers, there are additional factors such as incentives, available liquidity, SLA support, and service guarantees, to name a few. But if you don't want to take the risk of deciding a bridge or choosing a bridge, you actually don't have to do that. You can just use an aggregator, like a LeFi. Aggregators actually aggregate a lot of bridges and into a single SDK or a widget, and they actually let end user decide which route to choose. To some extent, that just moved the decision to the end user. And also it implies that we have to trust the aggregator itself. We now, with introducing an aggregator, we now have 2 additional risks introduced to the system. It's alignment and coordination risk. You can also decide yourself, but in order for you to do that, since it's a really complex topic and really broad ecosystem, you really need to have a lot of expertise to be able to judge about bridge properties and designs. It's not a trivial thing for you, for a normal dev developer to decide. You can also use like a risk evaluation framework that will help for sure. And it is very, very time consuming and partially or practically impossible to get all the required information before you integrate a bridge. So with the future, where we envision millions of blockchains, and we are, chains are going to become much more dynamic in the future. With all the layer 2 scaling technologies, with all the, like it says here, modular block, like rollup as a service, parathreads, we are going to see the future where blockchains will be created per need and destroyed where they aren't needed anymore. This will, of course, also force the bridges and the bridging technology to facilitate this short lifespan of the blockchains themselves, them coming and going, disappearing all the time. There are two key factors for enabling that multi-chain future. Any protocol designed to serve as the backbone of the cross-chain future must have certain key attributes, at least we think. First of all, it should be free, always. And second, it should be governed in a contributor-owned and pluralistic manner. So what does that actually mean? We believe that this type of infrastructure, that is the backbone of the whole ecosystem, should be open source and licensed in a permissive manner. This approach would allow users and the protocols to evolve freely, fostering trust and allowing space for it to develop accordingly. So moreover, we advocate for such protocols to be, as I said, free of charge, operating only at a gas cost. So no additional fees should be in place, and the monetization of such protocols and the value capture should occur on top of that on the application level. Similar to the success of internet protocols, the success of the internet protocols can in part be attributed to their free of charge nature. Imagine internet costing money to use, nobody probably would ever use it, or the user base would be way smaller and not necessarily significant. So it has to stay free. And on top of that, we can build different applications, but the core protocol that we can charge for, but the protocol should always stay free. And also the permissionless extensibility. So of course, any protocol should be able to foster all the ecosystems, but it should do so in a permissionless manner, independent on the company that's building the protocol. Users should be able to freely add new tokens and add new supporting networks. For example, the cross-chain messaging of Sigma operates on a free of charge basis. The sustainability of the protocol will be approached by empowering the Sigma protocol and its community contributors to generate revenue through the implementation of cross-chain strategies on top of that. So as I said, we can see the future where there are so many, like millions probably of blockchains in so many different technologies on top of the layer 1 chain, where there has to be some kind of a unified way for all of these technologies to exist and to communicate in between each other. It's gonna become like kind of hectic and chaotic if we don't do that. So we have two ecosystems, two layer 1 chains here, Ethereum and Polkadot, and we have intra-chain communication and inter-chain communication. Intra-chain communication is communication inside of a single layer 1 or a single ecosystem. In the Polkadot's case, it's obviously parachains, and they communicate between each other through an XCM. But in order for you to talk to Ethereum ecosystem, that's called intercommunication, and you need to have some sort of a bridge or a communication or a cross-chain communication protocol for you to be able to talk to Ethereum. And the third assumption that we have is the trust and security trade-off. Once that you have chosen your bridge solution, you are kinda locked to a specific security model. So imagine you deploying your dApp and it has to be cross-chain. And you choose a bridge at starting point of your the app lifecycle, and you have certain assumptions, as I said, risks, costs, and security. And transferring $2 or $2 and $2 million shouldn't necessarily use the same bridging mechanism because the value that you're transferring is way larger. So maybe for the way lower transactions, you can use one security guarantee that actually is kind of a bit less secure, but it's faster because you don't care about security of your $2. But if you're transferring $2 million of value or transacting $2 million of value, then for sure you're gonna want to choose the most secure model there is. But also there is something called, you can actually avoid making an explicit choice before we have something called like adaptive security, and you can actually choose a model or a user can select a model with specific security model that is best suited for their current specific request, while of course maintaining the consistent bridging experience, which is probably after security, user experience is by far the most important thing. Yeah, so as I said, there are different types of bridging technologies: proof of authority, optimistic rollups, ZK rollups. We are trying to, so the user experience shouldn't suffer here. And if you are using a bridge and the bridging technology, cross-chain communication layer, then you should be able to pick and choose which of these technologies, easily pick and choose which of these technologies you are actually going to use. So if you are going to, proof of authority, of course, is quick and cheap solution, but it is a trusted setup. That's by far the most performant solution, but you have to trust someone and you have to have the trust in third party. Optimistic, of course, you have to wait for the challenge period to end. That kind of is tricky for sometimes. You can offset that with different other technologies, but also it's cheaper than zero knowledge and it's trustless. And the zero knowledge is, of course, most expensive. It's quicker than the optimistic rollup, and it's also trustless. So having all those three solutions in the same solution, actually as the same cross-chain protocol, would allow developers to, as I said earlier, pick and choose what kind of bridging technology they want to use for that specific use case. If the developers want to build their applications on top of our protocols, we should observe the bridges and communication layers between the bridges. Of course, this base layer as a public infrastructure should be gas neutral, as I mentioned earlier. You just pay for the execution cost of these transactions. There is no additional cost involved. And also, it should be permissionless, as I said before, mentioned earlier. It is still a public infrastructure. We believe that there are three key components for a protocol to be considered public infrastructure. That's, of course, free of charge, completely open source, and governed in a pluralist way. So today, the reason why I ended up giving this talk is because I really think that we are building something truly important for this ecosystem. and that without this talk, maybe the Polkadot community would miss out on such a cool product and technology. So I'm introducing Sigma. So what is Sigma? Sigma is an interoperability layer for building cross-chain applications. It is built on technology that has already transferred over $600 million in assets across top blockchains. And the project is designed to support teams that want to implement use cases such as cross-chain lending, governance, NFTs, and more. It's not only that we're focusing on liquidity or cross-chain liquidity and NFTs and token transfers, but for us, more important, we're also focusing on cross-chain messaging, which would allow a user not only to, as I said, transfer liquidity, but call different smart contracts on different layer ones. So imagine if you have like a DAO, cross-chain governance, or something similar, cross-chain deployed, then you have to be able to communicate with different smart contracts or different contracts on different chains. Sigma actually allows you to do that. So we have 5 different. The vision of Sigma can be put in 5 different categories. First one, and the pillars of actually our vision. The first one is the community. It should be a community-governed protocol. That cross-chain builder community drives that interoperability protocol. As I mentioned before, tailored security means that any developer should be able to freely choose one of these different models, like proof of authority, ZK, or optimistic, or many different in the future that are yet to come and yet to be seen. But yeah, you shouldn't be locked into a single security choice that you made a year ago. So you can always pick and choose specific security that you want. Of course, it should be public. As I mentioned earlier, for us, public infrastructure means free of charge, completely open source, and governance plays a really, really big and pivotal role here. So the next thing beyond EVM, of course, that's why we are here on the Polkadot event. Not only, we shouldn't connect only natively EVM-based chains, but also substrate-based chains. We will introduce Cosmos soon, and beyond that, of course. And we also are really striving to be permissionless and a permissionless system, so anyone can actually participate in any chain and any token can be added without interference of the creators or the community of the builders. So this is a high-level overview of how Sigma operates. So first, a user comes to the dApp that wants to initiate a cross-chain message, or maybe to be a bit more to have more common practical use case, wants a token transfer from chain A to chain B. The user, either through our UI or through an SDK, initiates a deposit on the chain A. Depending on the chain you are operating on, is it EVM-based chain or substrate-based chain, you are talking to a smart contract or a pallet. So you are then, for example, you're talking to a smart contract on EVM. Then we have a set of relayers and relaying partners that are using something called MPC, or multi-party computation, which is cryptographic, like a feature that actually splits the key into, so each relayer has only part of the key. Nobody ever has the full key, and we think that's currently the best approach to proof of authority bridging, because that way you divide the risk between all the parties, and if you choose and pick the right relaying partners, like we think we did from the Polkadot ecosystem, that actually have skin in the game and actually are using the protocol themselves, then and have their own value locked on that protocol, then they aren't or they are incentivized to govern that protocol in a safe manner as well. So after a user initiate deposit, we have a set of relayers that are listening to on-chain events, and they can pick up the deposit, they parse the deposit, and execute. And then call the smart contracts or the pellet on the different chain and execute actually that on the destination chain. So with this, I would like to thank you all for coming and invite you. Probably the main call to action here should be reach out to me or through any of these channels or any of our actual team members. We would really like to invite you to build with us. We also have different incentive programs that aren't only monetary. Of course they are, but not only monetary, but we can offer an expertise of a really, really, really good team that can actually help you build, like with on-hand support, help you build your cross-chain applications. And that's it. Thank you very much. For questions, we can talk later. Thank you.